Well, as we get closer to the government's debt limit deadline, will lawmakers reach a deal before time runs out? Joining us now, Democratic Representative Sheila Jackson-Lee of Texas and Republican Representative Morgan Griffith of Virginia. Good to see you both. Let me just play a little sound for both of you. I hope you can hear us well. This is a kind of loose talk that's been going around about a default. And, of course, the word default is a loaded term up here in the Wall Street area. Let's play the sound bites and get you to comment.
We realize the potential damage to 300 million plus Americans if we default on this debt for the first time in history.
And time to avert a catastrophic default on the nation's bills.
Try to make sure that there's no issue of default and to get our government reopened.
We stand a good chance of defaulting, and defaulting would have a potentially devastating effect on our economy.
Representative Lee, I used to cover Latin America. I've covered defaults, country defaults. They don't happen very often. They only happen when countries refuse to pay their bills to bondholders. Is there any sign that you have seen or heard of that the Treasury Department is planning to default on its Treasury bonds?
Well, you know, as I do, unfortunately, bondholders stand first in line. But I think the real issue is that we know in the last attempt to default 2 years ago, when again there was this very difficult negotiating with House Republicans, we were downgraded by Standard & Poor's. And so it makes a great deal of difference to the small business women or the women business owners that I just got through speaking to that there is even a rumor of default. The real issue is whether or not it is the perception of the world markets and, if you will, Wall Street, will pay her bills. And I think at this hour on a Tuesday evening, the only thing that we should do is to vote to put forward the compromise, the collaboration, the reasonable response to a solution to a problem that the senators have offered, and to vote on that and to move this country forward.
Representative Griffith, specifically, what we have now is the question of whether we're going to have a prioritization. If we do hit the debt limit, the Treasury Department is going to have to decide who gets paid first. As Representative Lee just told us, first in line are the debt holders. Is that going to continue, or is it conceivable that there would be a default, that the Treasury Secretary would decide bondholders come second or third or fourth?
Well, I don't know how they could make that decision. I think it's inconceivable that the Secretary would make that decision. I think what you're going to see is that hopefully we'll get a negotiated settlement worked out of this. But I don't think even if we get past that deadline that you would see the bondholders not getting their money. So
you think there is zero chance of default?
I think it's zero chance as long as everybody's doing what they're supposed to. And one of those things is to negotiate and make sure that we're all sitting around the table and that we're working it out.
Well, Representative Lee, the question is what happens on Thursday if there's not an agreement. We just had a meeting of Democratic lawmakers in the White House, and coming out, Steny Hoyer and some others were suggesting that the Treasury Secretary may have to begin prioritization of bills. And going beyond that, and here's a question of the 14th Amendment. It's kind of the nuclear option. I'll read for our viewers, I'm sure you know it, but the Section 4 of the 14th Amendment says the validity of the public debt shall not be questioned. So the question is whether the president would use the 14th Amendment to prioritize himself and take Congress out of the whole issue of the debt limit, raise the debt limit himself. Is that possible?
Well, you know, I'm going to take a quote from the majority leader that really is absolutely awful. And the very fact that we are in a give and take, we're in a watch the house burn down and try to borrow your neighbor's fire hose and it can't be borrowed is absolutely absurd and insane, and the American people should not tolerate it. Frankly, there is a compromise, there is a solution, there is a reasonable solution to where we are right now, and it is a proposal offered by the bipartisan group of senators led by a Republican woman from the Senate and a Democratic woman from the Senate. And I would hope that those reasonable minds could actually look at this solution and not be tittering with who gets paid and not. Frankly, on October 17th, I'm going to use the term, even though there's a prioritization, we will be in default. And when I say
that's not true from a market perspective, Congresswoman, you know that.
Let me say this.
That's not a default. If we hit the
there
debt
will
ceiling,
be-
that is not the definition of a
there
default.
will
A default
be
is not
a
paying your
choice
bondholders,
made.
Congresswoman.
I am not going to quarrel with what Fox Business is saying about default.
It's the market.
American
It's
people,
Wall Street.
the American
You may not
people
like it, but that's their
will
definition.
the American people will perceive that we're in a very dangerous zone. And I am well aware, as you know, that the market views it differently, and it is not a default as it relates to the market.
Okay.
But the fact that we are dithering with this
Nobody
kind
likes
of
the dithering.
discussion,
No question about it.
it is not appropriate. And what
Congresswoman, I
believe
agree with
is
you
appropriate,
100%, but I
then
just got to get a
let's push
specific
folk
answer to the question.
Let's push folk to be able to make a
Okay,
decision.
let me
The
just
specific
ask for
question
a
is-
quick answer to this question, though, if I may, Congresswoman, which is
You may.
would then not expect, nor would you support the President using the 14th Amendment to raise the debt ceiling limit himself.
What I would support is that the President and the legal team that he has to look at the options that may be appropriate. We know full well that in the very, how should I say it, difficult climate that we're in, as a constitutional reader, if you will, the 14th Amendment lays the groundwork for options like that. But I'm not going to put those words in the mouth of the President of the United States, because as he has indicated, he wants to see us move forward to ensure that there is no debt ceiling
I have to give
crisis.
Mr. Griffith a chance to respond to
And
the
that
same
we pay our
question.
bills.
Would you support or expect in any way the President to use the 14th Amendment to raise the debt ceiling himself?
Absolutely not. I don't believe that's constitutionally sound. I think if the President does that, he will have crossed a line that should not be crossed, and that is that the bondholders are going to have to be paid. The money is there. We need to work this problem out. We need to sit down and negotiate with one another. We need to talk, sit around a conference table, make this thing happen, and every side is going to have to give some a lot. But we're going to have to work this thing out. But I believe that it would be unconstitutional for the President to use the 14th Amendment to try to raise the debt ceiling on his own.
Sheila, Jackson, Lee, Morgan Griffith, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it.